Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. K-pop just hit a new high note on the global stage. For the first time ever, a track labeled as K-pop has taken home a Grammy Golden from the original soundtrack of the animated film K-pop Demon Hunters, broke through what many have called the toughest gatekeeping wall in American music. The win comes at a time when global interest in Korean culture is surging once again. And with a full group comeback from BTS and a new album from BLACKPINK on the horizon, 2026 is already shaping up to be a defining year for the genre. But as applause pours in, so do questions about the limits of K-pop's identity, how far it can go, and what needs to change for it to truly take root in the mainstream. Today we ask, is this a turning point or just another headline? For answers to this, we connect to Chung Min-jae, music critic and Korean Music Awards Selection Committee member. A big welcome.
Hello, good evening.
And also joining us is Samantha James, Assistant Professor of Communication at Auburn University. Good to see you, Professor.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's begin with the headline moment, Mr. Jung. The Grammy Awards, long seen as the highest role in mainstream American music, awarded Golden from the OST for K-pop Demon Hunters. In your view, what does this win represent in the broader history of K-pop?
Considering the long history of K-pop pursuing overseas expansion, especially into the US, this is certainly an encouraging milestone. However, it is somewhat disappointing that the win came only in the Best Song Written for Visual Media category, which had effectively been the strongest chance for recognition. Moreover, amid ongoing debate over whether Golden can even be considered K-pop, some see the result as recognition limited to the more limited film music category. After winning the Golden Globe, the momentum behind Golden was extremely strong, and many major outlets such as The Guardian, Virality, Billboard, and the Los Angeles Times, and many more, named it a frontrunner for Song of the Year, yet it did not win. For that reason, I think it is still difficult to say that K-pop has completely broken through the Grammy barrier.
It's too early to say that, but that in itself indeed seems to be a great achievement and as a first stepping stone. But building on that, this is the first time a song under the K-pop label has ever received a Grammy. Professor James, from the perspective of how the American music industry and the Grammys make their selections, what do you think was the key reason that Golden took home the award?
Yeah. First of all, I do want to say that Golden is a great song, and so it deserved a Grammy for some recognition at some point. I'm really glad it was awarded that award. You're correct that the American music industry and the Grammys especially focus on local statistics in their selections, and Golden was an undeniable hit on streaming platforms here in the US, repeatedly breaking records on Spotify and YouTube and breaking Billboard charts and staying at the top of those charts for weeks and weeks on end. But I argue that the key reason Golden took home the Grammy specifically is because of its virality. I think the song itself is really high quality, it's catchy, and it's family friendly. So it originated obviously as part of K-pop Demon Hunters as a children's film. And so kids were watching along with their parents and grandparents, other adults, asking for it to be played on repeat in households. I personally attended a bat mitzvah where a room full of American 13-year-old girls knew all of the words to the song Golden. And so I think as it caught on with the general public in the US, the Academy took note.
Right, definitely. Well, some even called it the second Let It Go, that it's really famous among the teens. Now, but even so, Golden didn't just stay within fandoms. It gained traction with the wider American public, despite being part of a soundtrack. So musically speaking, Mr. Jung, compared to earlier forms of K-pop, what allowed it to break beyond the typical fandom model?
The first thing to note is that this track is fundamentally an original soundtrack. There's no denying this. The success of the film K-pop Demon Hunters was the absolute driving factor. If this track had been released as a standalone digital single without the movie, would it have reached this level of success? I don't think so. Its popularity grew because it integrated so perfectly with the film story, which allowed it to reach a broader public audience more easily. And musically, there are also differences from typical K-pop. While most K-pop acts function as groups, Golden, performed by Huntrix, consisting of EJ, Audrey Nuna, and Rayami, is heavily centered on EJ's vocals. Many Western pop groups such as Destiny's Child, the Pussycat Dolls, and of course the legendary Supremes also worked with a clearly defined main vocal presence. Having a distinct primary vocal messenger gives the song a stronger sense of focus. In addition, unlike the often maximalist production style of K-pop, the sound here is minimal. It focuses on the vocals, the melody, and the storytelling, which makes it stand out.
Right, so all of that factors in harmony was able to bring this kind of results. But we also have a common critique on that. Some people say K-pop Demon Hunters was made with the US market in mind, and that makes it feel different from the traditional Korean music, K-pop. What's your take on that, and what do you personally see the outer limits of what still counts as K-pop, Professor James?
I think that's a fair critique, and the movie is by far the most accessible way for an American audience to learn about K-pop culture, Korean popular culture more broadly, fandom culture especially. The film was produced by LA-based Sony Pictures Animation and distributed by California-based Netflix. It was written and recorded in English and involved cameos from well-known Asian American artists, specifically actors like Ken Jeong and Daniel Dae Kim. But what makes the music in K-pop Demon Hunters feel different from traditional K-pop is a couple of other things on top of what Mr. Jung already said. So first, the music is used to move the plot of the film more like a musical score. You said that it was acting almost like the songs from Frozen in its virality and its popularity, and that's exactly the case. It's almost like a Disney musical style songwriting. So the pacing is different, and that sound is different from some of the more polarizing elements that we've come to know and love in K-pop, things like genre shifts, experimental sound effects. And the song is also emblematic of this English first format, so it's not just the English version of a Korean song. All of this does make it more palatable to a US market, but I would argue that Golden is actually emblematic of a core element of what the K-pop industry is, in my mind, which is its globalness. And so the K-pop industry has been the work of global teams for years, especially when it comes to songwriting and production. And I think Golden is just another excellent example of that. In my opinion, the outer limits of what we can define as K-pop is based on industry practice and production process, not one specific genre.
Right, so it definitely showed another face of Korean pop. Now, on the other hand, we saw nominations like Rosé and Bruno Mars's 아파트 make it to the shortlist of major Grammy categories. But once again, we saw no wins. But considering the Grammys' US-centric nature, Professor James, what changes or steps do you think would be needed for K-pop to actually secure a major award?
I'm so glad you all asked this question. I think creating songs with the goal of winning a Grammy is one thing, but making music to reach a global audience is another. We talked about the US-centric nature of the Grammys and how they are at their core based on these more local metrics. I think that the K-pop industry is known for its global reach, its social media prowess, and is already doing that fantastically from very K-pop industry relevant methods. And I don't see that changing. So instead, I would love to see continued great work from an unapologetically K-pop style production process. It's already happening, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Right, it's a reminder that a recognition doesn't always come easy, even with global success. To make sure that Golden, it's not just a one-time achievement, Mr. Jung, what do you think is the biggest priority you think K-pop creators and the industry should focus on moving forward?
As I mentioned ahead, the fact that the song was part of a film soundtrack certainly played a role in its success, but the music itself had to be great. It's common sense. Even if a movie is a hit, The theme song won't succeed if the music isn't good. Modern K-pop is forced to juggle so many external factors like the packaging, the visuals, the concept, the storytelling, how many versions of an album to release to boost sales, and which TikTok challenge will go viral. Something like these. Strong melodies, meaningful lyrics, great vocals, and well-crafted compositions ultimately have the power to resonate with the public.
Right. So sustainability and how much it can resonate with the listeners and the viewers will be very important moving forward. And of course, Golden's win was heavily supported by the popularity of the K-pop demon hunters, like what just Mr. Jung has said. So, Professor James, what elements of the show do you think helped it resonate with the mainstream American culture, and how do you think its Korean-specific elements managed to connect globally?
I'm often asked this question by other Americans, and my answer is the same as why I think Golden deserved to win a Grammy. It's an excellent film, exactly what Mr. Jung was saying. If we want to go deeper into it, the core message of hope, friendship, love, overcoming evil is pretty universal from a fan studies perspective, which is where I'm coming at it from. I think that the way fandom is portrayed in this movie challenges a lot of the stereotypes of crazy fangirls, and so that resonated with young women and their families especially. In general, for an American audience, the film is pretty easily accessible. It's written in English, it's shared on Netflix, like we said, and it has some key underdog, being yourself individualist themes that resonate with an American audience, as well as some introductory level Korean pop culture references that are no longer alien for a US audience, or alienating for a US audience, because we've seen K-pop and Korean culture and Hallyu more broadly grow in popularity over the last few years. And so references to things like ramyeon and K-pop light sticks and even mukbang is something that fans are already used to seeing, and more broadly, just the general American public is used to seeing. So I think it acts as this entry point that helps the movie balance novelty and accessibility at the same time.
Right. It's really fascinating how local stories and culture seems to be welcomed in many parts of the world. Now, looking ahead, BTS is scheduled to make their full group comeback this March, and their new album, Arirang, has already surpassed 4 million pre-orders in just 1 week. Mr. Jung, how strong would you say the market's expectations are for their return?
In the entire history of K-pop, no group has commanded as much global attention as BTS, and the group has been on hiatus for several years. The level of anticipation surrounding their return is at an all-time high, and this is already being demonstrated through the record-breaking pre-orders and world tour sales. It is clear that the comeback will generate extraordinary sales, but the decisive factor will ultimately be what kind of music BTS presents this time. Songs such as Dynamite and Butter received tremendous love and reached #1 in the Billboard chart, but their success was also strongly supported by the crew's massive fandom. They weren't necessarily organic hits enjoyed by the general public in the way songs like 아파트 or Golden have been. For this comeback, I hope BTS will deliver not only chart-dominating songs, but also a true representative hit that defines this era of their career. In any case, it seems certain that they will set historic records across charts, sales, and touring.
Right, as many are anticipating, we will definitely look forward for their comeback. Now, lastly, with Golden's Grammy win and the full group comeback by BTS, as well as a new album from BLACKPINK being lined up, many are saying 2026 marks a real turning point for K-pop. So, in your view, Professor James, what direction do you think K-pop should be aiming for next?
My answer is twofold. Primarily, I am a fandom scholar, so that's where my head is at again. I think a lot has changed, exactly what Mr. Jung was just saying, since both BTS and BLACKPINK's last comeback. In terms of the fandom experience, social media use, fan expectations, and how we value fan streaming processes and the way that they consume content in general. So I'm excited to see that change, and I know that it's already happening. We've seen it in these sold-out tour that BTS just announced a few weeks ago. And second, I would urge K-pop as an industry to look beyond the US in terms of global reach. There are expanding markets for the industry that already have large fan bases in places like South America, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, for example. And so we're seeing companies do that already with groups like Cat's Eye and the new hype group Santos Bravos. And I'm really excited to see where those next steps take the industry itself.
Definitely. What about Mr. Jung? Do you have anything to add on to this?
I hope K-pop does not remain a temporary phenomenon, although the comparison is not exact. One example from cinema is Hong Kong film in the 1990s, which became a major global phenomenon and produced legendary directors, actors, and masterpieces. However, as you know, that momentum did not continue, and it eventually remained largely as a memory of a particular era. K-pop is currently at its absolute peak, and it needs to use this momentum to establish itself as a permanent pillar of global pop music, one that people everywhere enjoy naturally, rather than producing repetitive music and images simply because they are immediately profitable. The industry should aim to create works that will last longer. If you look at Latin pop, it rose to prominence in the 80s and 90s and is now a standard category of music worldwide. I want K-pop to do the same, continuing to evolve and transform so that 20 or 30 years from now, it remains a vital part of the global music landscape.
Right, a very strong and important message you've made. It really feels like K-pop is standing at a global crossroads once again, and we're really excited to see where it leads next. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights tonight, Mr. Jung.
Thank you so much.
And of course, Professor James, we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.